guys, welcome back to the Camp Chronicles podcast. It is getting into the final countdown to camp. Camp is literally next month, and Summer, you leave in like a week and a bit, don't you?
10 days.
10 days. So that is insane. As it's getting so close to camp now, this topic might not, well, it's definitely not really relevant when you first get to camp, but for the post-camp side of things, obviously a lot of people want to stay and travel. So I thought we'd give a few tips now so you can hopefully bear these in mind for when you are booking your post-camp travels in a few months' time. We won't go too much into like specific destinations in this episode because we did a whole episode on this a few months back, which is episode 15, if anybody wants to go and have a look, where we went into like our top places to visit. This episode will be mostly for like with tips and tricks and things like that. So when to actually start booking stuff? When did you start booking stuff for your travels?
During camp. I've done that every year, apart from the summer where I already had pre-plans with family. But I think it's so important to book when you're at camp, when you meet your friends.
I think it's the best way to do it because when you actually get there, you'll end up meeting people, and then it might be a few weeks until you find like your group and like the people that you want to go traveling with. You're probably not gonna like, get there on the first day and have your whole travel plans booked, and that's absolutely fine. Most people, I would say, end up booking them halfway through towards like the end of the summer as well. It's not like something that's super, super urgent, is it?
I think the common mistake is when people make friends before camp and they're like messaging and stuff and they're like best friends, then they get into camp and then they get into the orientation bunks and then they get into the actual camp like divisions for the summer and then start to realise that actually they've kind of gone opposite ways. Doesn't always happen, but it's very common that that happens. So as much as like you're really excited before camp, just I'd advise not to book them beforehand with people that you've met from camp just yet. Like we've said, until you get there and actually see who your like group is.
Yeah, that is very true. I mean, like, realistically, the people you're probably going to spend the most time with are the people that are in your like age division or on the same activity area or on the same like nights off as you. So yeah, if you make friends with, I don't know, Emily, and you and Emily end up being like your lifeguard for lower camp and she's a cabin counsellor for upper camp, you might not overlap that much. So you'll have had all these like plans laid and then you end up making like better friends with other people who you'd rather travel with. So definitely better to kind of leave it till once you're actually at camp. Another thing as well is to always like be open with like the places that you're wanting to visit. Like have an idea, but then obviously, like we said, you'll make friends, you'll find your group that you want to travel with. They'll probably have places on their like travel bucket list that they want to go to that you'd never heard of or never considered going to. But actually, if you end up going there, it could end up being like your favourite place that you visit.
And just remember that things always fall into place. Last year, I didn't book my travels until 2 weeks before the end. And it is so easy to start panicking when you're at camp because you don't really have much time to book your travels. But just know that everything will work out. You'll find your group. Just ask around, see what people are doing. I think I mentioned in the previous episode that last year when I travelled to Texas, it was with some of the lifeguards that honestly I never really spent a lot of my time with over the summer and ended up having the best time. But if you just have them conversations and see where everyone's going and say, oh, like, do you mind if I jump on? People will more than likely be more than happy to have you on there. So just remember that things will fall into place and not to panic, as easy as it is to do.
Yeah, that is very true. And then let's think more about like the logistical side of things. So the traveling obviously in between places, like when I book my travels, I always try and book them in the most logical route possible. So I don't want to be doubling back on myself too much, and just because it ends up making the cost obviously a lot higher, if you're flying like east to west coast multiple times, unless you manage to get a crazy good deal on a flight. Have you ever travelled anywhere by train? And I'm not talking like subway type train, I mean like proper like Amtrak type train.
No, never, but I've heard that you see some amazing things if you do it like in the middle of the country.
I've never done it either, but it's just, I don't even know if I've really looked into it to be fair. But again, like you were saying, I've seen that on TikTok, not in real life, a lot of people like posting, and like because you do literally travel through like the middle of the country, like you do get a lot of amazing sights. So it's not something I can really give advice on if you choose to travel by train, but I'm sure there's people out there that have done it and probably would recommend it maybe.
I always travel by plane or bus, to be honest, or car even. We've done like a little road trip before. But what I will say is that I'm the type of person will book a flight, and then if I know I'm getting a bus, I'll book the bus like 2 days before I'm going on the bus. So usually the buses are quite cheap to get around. I think when we went from Dallas to Austin, I think it cost us like $30, maybe even less, and that was for like a 3 hour journey. So it is definitely worth like looking into cheaper options if you're traveling like in close proximity to the other places.
Yeah. And the like any sort of like travel that you do in between places, if it's a slightly longer distance, try and do like an overnight one, just because it means that you're not then saving money because you're not going to have to pay for a hotel for that night, and you're probably definitely 100% not going to get the best night's sleep ever, but it will save you money. So for example, my first summer, I flew across to Vegas and then got a Greyhound bus between Vegas and LA, and then went overnight from LA up to San Fran. And it meant that like we didn't lose out on a day of like exploring anywhere as well, because it was like 11 o'clock at night when we left LA and we got to San Fran at something like 7 o'clock in the morning. Was probably the worst sleep I've ever had, but we saved money and it meant we still got to do some exploring. So yeah, definitely have a look into doing overnight ones if you can.
Also, like you can get quite a lot of overnight flights. I think they're called red eye flights in
Yeah.
America. I don't know if it's the same all over the world, but I know I took the red eye flight from Vegas to Florida, and it was the best thing. I think my flight was at like 23:59 or like 12:01 in the morning, and it got me into Orlando at like 7 o'clock in the morning. Then I got on a Flixbus, and actually, it might have been a Greyhound bus, one or the other. And I got that all the way up to Gainesville. And then, like you said, I didn't have to pay for accommodation over that night time. And the cheap flight was because it was so late at night. And then the bus was quite cheap as well.
Yeah. And with flight as well, I don't know, I feel like we might have briefly mentioned this in like a Q&A episode or some other episode before. They'll start off cheap, like the base ticket quite often for internal flights will start off cheap, but then once you add on like your baggage and your extras and things like that, they do start to get a little bit more expensive. So what you think might be like the cheap option to go with Spirit, because we've got obviously for the most part like big suitcases, backpacks, sometimes a little suitcase as well. By the time you add all of that on, the price does start to go up, and you might even be better booking with a typically more expensive airline like Southwest. I'm such a Southwest stan, like I always go on about Southwest, because you get 2 checked bags included in the ticket price. It's weird though how you don't get like your seat allocated. You get given a boarding number based on how early you check in, and then you just go on the plane and pick whichever seat you want.
That's wild. I didn't even realise that. I've never flown Southwest, but I know
Mm.
one of my friends put in the group chat that her friends just booked her Nashville flight and it was £50 in total. And she obviously got the 2 suitcases
Mm-hmm.
on, which is insane considering I paid something like £50 for JetBlue and I still have to add a case on.
Do you know what? That actually could probably be the flight that we got last year, because I think I paid $63 from JFK to Nashville, and it was a later flight as well. I think it was like 8 or 9 o'clock at night, so we got into Nashville a bit later. But yeah, like we are saying, you get like the 2 checked bags for free. But it's really weird the way they do it. So like the earlier you check in, the like higher priority you get for your boarding group number, and then you all queue up in a line to get on the plane based on like your number basically, and then when you go on the plane you just pick whichever seat you want. So you'll walk on, and if you're like the last person on, you're gonna be walking down and it'll be like middle seat, middle seat, middle seat. They'll be like the only ones left. But another tip actually with flights is if you're flying in a group and you're wanting to book a flight, try and all book it at the same time, so that the price doesn't go up. I managed to get from where did it end up? From San Fran to JFK last summer, and I think it ended up costing me like $150 with Frontier. That was the cheapest we could get it with the bags included and stuff. And then when Stephen went back on to book his, it was going to cost him like $180 without any of the baggage or anything like that, because he left it a little bit late. So always try and book at the same time if you want to get a similar price as well.
Yeah, and another thing is make sure you check weight allowance on your suitcases because it does vary and differ.
Mhm.
In America when you're getting internal flight. I know with Spirit it's 19 kilograms,
Mhm.
whereas with Delta I know it's 23. So if you're thinking about, like we've said, going with Spirit because it's cheaper, and then even with an added suitcase on, just think that the likelihood is you're probably going to have to pay for overweight baggage, which then costs you another $50. That's
Mhm.
what stung me the most in my first summer travelling. Every flight I got on, I had to pay an absolute fortune to actually get my suitcase around. So
Mhm.
just bear that in mind, and bear that in mind when you're packing as well. Like, do really think, do I need this? And
Mhm.
remember, you're likely to pick stuff up when you're traveling around America, like Ellen has with her million merch t-shirts. Um, Maybe even go with that extra bit of space in your suitcase, because you know you're likely to buy things when you're out there, and overweight charges are an absolute bane in like
Mhm.
anybody's life.
Yeah. And you also don't want to have to be that person in the airport that's like repacking the bag the whole time, and you get to check in, it's overweight. Oh, I'll see what I can fit in my backpack and stuff like that. That is just like the worst thing to have to do in the middle of the airport.
Yeah.
Um
Last year, when we were flying from LaGuardia to Nashville, I checked my bag in. It was underweight. Everything was absolutely fine. Had my backpack on, was ready to go. When Jacob and Emmy
Mhm.
went to check their bags in, it was going to cost them like an absolute fortune, both of them.
Oh.
So then they were lay on the floor, pulling things out, getting things, chucking things away. And I was like, no, put that stuff in my backpack. I'm pretty sure I had like Jacob's like $200 like sneakers in my backpack, because it was like he was going to throw them away. I was like, no, don't be so silly.
God.
So I ended up going on the plane with my backpack triple the size it was meant to be, because I had all of their stuff in. But the last thing you want to do is throw away like valuable stuff that you don't want to
Mhm.
get rid of. So that's a top tip.
Yeah, let that be a life lesson to everyone. Definitely. And moving on from kind of like planes, buses, trains and stuff, obviously what a lot of people do and what I did last summer is a road trip. There's a few things I could probably say about hiring a car and renting a car, and I'll try and say them brief. But obviously, if you're under 25, you're probably going to have to pay like a young driver fee, basically. If you're doing a road trip and it's not a round route and you're going from one to the other, you're going to have to probably pay a one-way drop-off fee. And this is sometimes hidden in the fine print, okay? So make sure you do read the fine print if you're booking a car. Also make sure the mileage is unlimited. Otherwise, again, written in the fine print, you might have to pay per mile that you drive. And if you do a big road trip, it'll end up costing you a lot of money. And then insurance as well. Always make sure you do take out some sort of insurance, whether that's with the rental company or it's like a third party insurance. Just always make sure, because you never know what might happen when you're road tripping.
When we drove down from Miami, we drove it all the way down to Key West, brought it back, and then we were going to drop it off in Fort Lauderdale. But then we decided to have it for an extra day, and we drove all the way up to Gainesville and back to Fort Lauderdale, and then dropped it off the next day before we flew to the Bahamas. And we were literally like 20 miles away from getting charged an extra amount because we didn't realise about the mileage fee. But like Ellen said, you have to read the small print, because there is a lot of stuff in there. And there's a lot of hidden fees. So you pay online and you think you've paid everything, then you get there and then you've got your deposit that you have to pay. You've got to put money down. It's like extra bits. So just make sure you're reading the fine print before you actually like confirming that you're doing a road trip, because it does come out a little bit more spenny than you actually realise.
Yeah, actually, that also reminds us that a lot of companies require that somebody has a credit card to like put down for the car, like obviously in case of any sort of damages or things like that. So double check again in the fine print if you need a credit card. Now moving away from like the fine print, doing a road trip is so much fun. You literally get to see like so many like random towns and cities and things that you wouldn't see or get the chance to like stop off in if you fly in between places, or even getting like a bus between places. It just gives you like a lot more freedom as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, and you can get around whenever you want, and you don't have to worry about paying a fortune on Ubers if you want to go places. Um, just make sure, obviously, where you go and there's places to park the car. So, for example, if you're staying at a hotel, you know, like you can park it for free, because that's another thing as well. Having to pay stuff like that and petrol is also added costs onto road trips. But I think road trips this year seem to be the most popular from what I'm reading in the group chat that returners want to do.
Yeah. I think we'll definitely be doing another road trip this year. Maybe a spot in Nashville. I don't know yet. We'll see if we can squeeze it in, but definitely a road trip.
I really wish you were coming to Nashville when we're going, because that would be so good, because we obviously finish at the same time.
No, I feel like Hannah and Stephen could be persuaded.
I'll try. I'll try and
Yeah,
persuade them. I'll
I think
plead to them.
if I can like work out a route where we can get Nashville in and still manage to see all the things that we're wanting to see for the road trip, I reckon that could be easily persuaded.
Okay, if you're listening, guys, please.
Let's go to Nashville.
And then, kind of moving away from traveling between places, accommodation. This is a big thing that I think we need to talk about. Is we get a lot of questions about being 21 and what you can do and time off and things. 21 is a big thing when it comes to hotels, is that a lot of places want you to be 21 to check in. I was very fortunate when I stayed in New York for the first time on my own after camp my first summer. Although it was 21 at check-in, they let me check in. But this, trust me, I've heard the stories, this doesn't always happen. So make sure you're reading up to make sure that you can check in if you are under 21, or if you have somebody that is 21 with you, that they're there with their ID so that you can check into the hotel.
Yeah, because I didn't like really know that was a thing, because I'm pretty sure like here it's like 18 at most hotels, isn't it, to check in? You only have to be 18. And I remember being on booking.com and I was like reading the fine print. This was when I was supposed to go in 2020, by the way, so I wouldn't have been 21. And every single hotel, because I was doing a lot of research before I went, every single hotel I was looking at, I was like, must be 21 plus to check in, must be 21 plus to check in. I was saying, oh my God, it's like, I'm not going to be able to stay anywhere. But yeah, most of the time you're probably going to have at least one person in your group who is 21 or over who can check in on behalf of the group. And if not, just make sure you do check. Email ahead and say, is this okay? Or like on booking.com and those different places where you can book hotels, it'll usually say like that you need to be 21 or over to check in. Another bit on hotels as well is that I've often found, especially in America, hotels are usually cheaper than hostels. Especially if you're traveling with a group. If you're traveling by yourself, it's obviously going to be cheaper to go and get like one bed in a hostel room. But if you go in, I don't know, and there's like four of yous, because hotels in America have usually got at least two queen beds, you can fit four people in a hotel room. It's quite often cheaper than booking a bed each in a hostel, if that makes sense. I don't know if you've ever had a look into that very much.
I've stayed in a hostel once with a friend, and I found that was a little bit cheaper, but that was because there was only two of us in New York. Whereas I remember when we all went on a day off during camp, like a night and a day off, we all booked the same hotel, and it was so much cheaper than getting hostels because we crammed like, again, 4 to 6 people in a room. But just another thing with hotels, on the downside of them, a lot of them take security deposits. This is another big thing about why I recommend getting a credit card. Don't go crazy on the credit card buying things if you can't afford it, but it's a good thing to have when you're putting security deposits down on hotels, because obviously that, you know, $250 isn't pending out of your bank account while you are somewhere. So I always recommend that you check up on what the resort fees are, what the deposits are, because I remember when we went to the Key West and we stayed overnight, the fee for like the resort was more than the actual room itself. And we didn't even use the resort. Like, we checked in it, I think it was like something like 7 p.m. at night, went out for food, came back, went to sleep, and then left early the next morning.
There's always hidden extras in America. Like, you go to Walmart and you think, oh yeah, I'm paying this much for this item. No, you're not, because you need to add the tax on when you get to the till. And you go to a restaurant and you think, oh yeah, $5. Well, it's never $5 for a burger unless you're at takeaway. $10 for a burger at a restaurant. No, actually, by the time you pay for a tip and everything like that, it ends up being like $13, $14. You go to hotels and you have the resort fee and like the city tax, and like there are always bloody hidden extras in America. Still, obviously, love going, but always watch out for the hidden extras.
And then
Uh,
Airbnbs are the last one, aren't they? Which we found so helpful when we had a big
yeah.
group of us last year. We found it was so much nicer because we had our own space, we had our own house. We were
Hmm.
able to obviously cook meals, which became so much cheaper for us. We like batch cooked. We had our own pool in a lot of places, so it was nice and
Hmm.
private for us. We found it really useful when we were in Dallas to have somewhere like that because of the heat.
Hmm.
And obviously you had the pool to yourself whenever you wanted it. So we were in the pool at like 12 o'clock in the morning because it was like still so hot. But I'm such like a big believer in book Airbnbs if you have a good group with you.
Hmm. If you've got a big enough group, then Airbnbs usually always work out cheaper. I think it's just when you've got a smaller group that's when they tend not to. And I guess like just quickly touching on traveling in a small versus a big group. Like I've kind of done both. So first summer there was 6 of us traveling for the most part. Was that, Anna? Yeah, there was 6 of us traveling for the most part. Second summer, for the most part, it was just me and Stephen together, floating around different places. And then last year, for a big chunk of the travels, about 2 weeks, there was like think there's like 12 or 13 of us. And traveling in different group sizes, they all have their pros and cons. Obviously, if there's only 2 of yous, like it's less people to please. It's easier to just be like, oh, we'll do this, we'll do that. But then if one person, God bless Stephen, he can go, 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 go all day long, and I very much need to be in bed and have a bit of a sleep. I had to compromise for him so that I could stay up later, and he sometimes had to compromise for me because I needed to go to bed. Whereas when you're in a big group, there's you can break off into little smaller groups and do different things if you need to, but then also you've got a lot of people to please. Have you done big, small, medium groups?
First summer we did a big group
Hmm.
of us, and for the most part it was really good.
Hmm.
We split off into our different groups when we got to LA, and like the 4 of us went and done our own thing where the other 4 did their thing, and it
Hmm.
ended up being amazing. Like we went to Universal, we went to this famous person's house in the Hollywood Hills. Like
Oh
we had
yeah.
the greatest time ever. And then we joined back together for the end part of the LA trip, and the South Africans joined us, their
Hmm.
group, and then it ended up being amazing having all of us. So I do agree with the being in a bigger group can sometimes be better because you can split off and do your own thing, whereas if you are in like a smaller group it is a little bit more difficult to do that.
Hmm.
um I think it's also good for when like you have different budgets. So some people want to do more things, but some people might be on like a smaller budget. So
Hmm.
having like that mix really helps to kind of please everybody.
What I would say, actually, I think we touched on this in the episode with Tom, is always try and like do a little bit of research on the area that you book in the hotel or Airbnb or hostel, whatever it is you book in. If it's a lot cheaper than everything else you find in, it's probably a lot cheaper for a reason. Um, like the hotel we stayed in San Francisco, the actual hotel itself was nice. The room was spotless, like, but the area that it was in, it was Soma, I think. So it's like south of Market area. It was stands for, and that is like one of the roughest areas, full of drugs and crime and stuff like that. And if I'd done my research beforehand, I probably wouldn't have booked that hotel. I mean, obviously, we're still here to tell the tale and nothing happened. But when you're traveling, you do want to make sure that you feel safe, don't you?
And even if somebody else gives you a recommendation, still do your research on it. In my first summer, one of our really good friends told us to go and stay at this hostel. It was amazing. She stayed there before in New Orleans. We got there. It was the worst place I've ever stayed in my whole entire life. India House Hostel, if you want to have a look up on booking.com. And if you want to message me to get the video that I took of the hostel and realise how scarring it was. Put it this way, by the end of the travels, I had bed bugs, like bitten
Oh.
all over my body. Horrible, honestly. So my New Orleans stay was terrible for many reasons. So just make sure you're looking up, and if it's saying that it isn't clean, like a lot of the
Mhm.
hotels in New York say, make sure you read the reviews because you don't want to have bed bug bites all over your body because they're very painful. And the only downside I'd say to staying to an Airbnb, which I've just thought about, that's on our notes, is that you can't leave your luggage anywhere. So when
Mhm.
we were in Dallas, we had obviously our Airbnb had finished and we had nowhere to store our luggage. So we literally had to go straight to the bus station. And obviously it was red hot there. Like it
Mm.
was just not fun. Not a nice place to go to, Dallas bus station. So just be wary. It's very sketchy. It's a little bit like downtown LA bus stop. It's not a
Mm,
great place to go. So again, just make sure you're also researching places where you're traveling from.
mhm. Yeah. I mean, we're saying all this stuff about all these places being sketchy. We are here to tell the tale. Obviously, like most of the time it's fine, but it just does make you feel a little bit like unsafe when you're there. The only other thing I was thinking actually with the luggage is I'm sure you can, there's like websites where you can go on and you can like leave your luggage in like shops and things like that. Like some shops have storage where you like pay them and you can leave your luggage there. I've never done it myself, but if anybody does ever need something like that, that is maybe a little hack for you. And final thing for accommodation for me is to if you're looking at hotels, and hotels, like there's two that are pretty much just similar, but one of them offers a free breakfast. Go for the one with the free breakfast. Most of the time I've had free breakfasts, they've been fine. Usually in America they always have those like waffle makers. So I usually would have like a waffle for breakfast every morning anyways. And they'll have like fruit. The eggs and the sausage and the bacon might be a bit questionable. But it's food that you're not having to pay any extra for and you can eat as much as you want, and then that saves you a bit of money when you're doing other bits.
Yeah, and what just going off what you said just before that about the shops, a few of my friends who I travel with in Dallas, they had like two suitcases with them, and they knew they didn't need to take one around with them when they were traveling. So what they
Mm-hmm.
did is they actually left it in one of them stores for like a month, and then
Ah,
went and picked them up, and it was
yeah.
like absolutely fine. It was the best thing they did, and they saved so much money from doing that. So if you are planning on taking a gazillion suitcases with you, keep it
Mm-hmm.
in mind.
Yeah. And then moving on to like attractions, I guess, like things to do in different places. One of the number one things I would always say, as we mentioned, me collecting merch. I've got like college tops from nearly every place that I've visited, but like go and see like college towns because I don't know, they're just like so much fun, and there's always like, I mean, like parties, I guess, and like going out culture if that is your thing, but also like a lot of them have some real rich history, and the universities are like big and beautiful. Like in Austin, obviously like the uni there, like the college is just insane, isn't it?
It's beautiful. The campus is absolutely stunning. Our friend Max and Aidan walked us round theirs, and we managed to sneak into the stadium. And honestly,
Mm.
it was absolutely stunning. And then same with UF, like University of Florida. Their campus is absolutely gorgeous. Like you said, they look like they're rich in history. Like their buildings are beautiful.
Mm.
So definitely add a college town onto your travel bucket list, even if you're not part of the party culture. Like,
Mhm.
I'm not really like that at home, but it's so fun to experience and see how different university is in the UK compared to college, because you actually don't realise it is so different.
Mhm. When we were in Austin, it was like rush week for all the sororities, and Stella goes to Austin, so we went and met Stella, and she was like taking me around, and like we were sat in Wingstop eating Wingstop, and literally out of nowhere, this like stampede of girls in all these cutesy little floral dresses comes like running up like the main bit, and I literally didn't have a clue what was going on. And then later she was like, "Oh, I'll take you for like a walk around where all the houses are and stuff." And we're walking past some of the sorority houses, and they've literally, like you see in on TikToks, people like standing like this, like clapping at the door and stuff. And I was like, "What is this?" Like, and the way like that she was just telling us about everything and all these stages you've got to go through to try and get into your sorority, and like you've got to like have interviews and you've got to make such a good impression and all this stuff. It's like a job in itself.
Yeah, we were there towards the back end of Rush last year, and the way that Aidan and Max was describing it is like you've got to think these girls, a full face of makeup, all dressed up, wearing heels in like 35-40 degree heat. Like
Hmm.
it is brutal, and I'm talking like they go from like 6 o'clock in the morning until literally 10 o'clock at night. So it is like another level. But if you do get to experience a sorority or a frat, like please go and do it, because it's honestly it's insane.
Like we went to a frat party in Wisco, and it was just like the weirdest thing ever. Absolutely beautiful though. In Wisco, a lot of the frats, or this particular one, like their backyard bit, like literally looked out over the lake, and it was absolutely stunning. So yeah, go Badgers. Okay.
Thing to do when you are looking at things to do is TikTok free attractions. Something about New York is you can do so much and spend so little. Like you can spend a full day in Central Park and see so much. You can just walk around. Same with LA, really. You can do a lot of touristy stuff and it's all free. So instead of thinking like, oh, I've got to spend all of this money, you don't actually have to do that. So TikTok like things to do. Again, do your research, see if things are worth it. But honestly, we're so fortunate now with social media that you can literally research anything you want and you'll be able to find the answers to it. So like food restaurants, like coffee shops, attractions, even with the hotels, like the accommodation, the transport, everything like that. The big thing about this summer is just do your research.
And like you were saying about there being free things to do everywhere, like, when me and Stephen went to Boston, we're only there for a day. We literally did so much and we did not spend a single penny paying to do any sort of experience. Like we went to the library, went to the Boston Tea Party like museum thing, went to Quincy Market, like we went to Harvard. We like literally went everywhere. The only money we spent was on food. I think we literally must have walked the length of the Boston Marathon, the amount of steps we did by the end and the amount of walking we did. But it's especially when you're in big cities like that, when they're walkable, like you were saying in New York, go to Central Park and just walk around for the day. Like if you just walk around, you'll just see so many like random cool things. Obviously like some things that you want to do, you're probably gonna have to like pay. Like in New York, if you want to do like Top of the Rock or Summit One or like those sorts of things, that you're gonna have to pay for that. But there's still, if you're trying to do places on a budget, a lot of free things that you can do.
And with your road trip, you got to see a lot of places, didn't you? Do you want to explain to us a little bit about like the national parks that you done and the costs between that? More so because I actually want to know all of this information because I might be doing that.
So when we did our road trip last year, obviously we did quite a few national parks, and the majority of them were all covered under this pass. What is it called? It's called the America the Beautiful, and it's literally this like card that you get, and I think you get one per car, and you're like, it's a maximum of like 4 people in the car, and I think it was about $80, but that's like for a full year. So I'm hoping that when we go back this year, it's still valid for us to use, so that we
That'd be
won't have to
good.
pay for another new one. But basically, you get access into hundreds of national parks across America. The only place that we went to where we had to pay extra to go in was to see Horseshoe Bend, and I don't know if it's a national park or if it's like it was like some sort of different category. We had to pay extra to go in there. But that'll get you in everywhere. So we went to Bryce, Canyonlands, Zion, Arches, Yosemite, and Sequoia, and they were all, oh, and Grand Canyon. How did I forget about the Grand Canyon? And they were all covered with that pass. So it's definitely something worth looking into getting if you're going to go to multiple. If you're only going to one, it might not be worth you getting. But if you're doing multiple national parks, the America the Beautiful Pass is definitely worth getting, 100%.
Okay, I've noted that down. I've took a mental note and I will be researching that after we finish filming today.
Yeah, and actually, if anybody is going to national parks, have a look and see if you can find like towns that are close to multiple of them, so you're not having to travel around as much. So when we went to see Arches and Canyonlands, we stayed in Moab because that was like pretty central to the two of them. And then when we went to Bryce and Zion, we stayed in Kanab, and that was like pretty much 6 and 2 3s to either of them. It just meant you weren't moving around places as often as well, and it just made it a little bit easier, definitely. And alongside the kind of experiencing the different national parks, like, and college towns and cities, like every state in America is like so different and it has its own like unique things, or every city will be famous for different things and different reasons. So try and find out like what that place is famous for. Like when we went to Utah, obviously there's a lot of Mormons in Utah, and I think this is why they've got this thing. Have you heard of swig before?
No, never.
So I think it's because, I don't know if it's because they can't have like alcohol, or because they can't drink or something. They basically have like cocktails, but they're like soda cocktails. So most of them are like drive-ins, and you go and you order and you can get like the massive, massive, like big gulp size drinks if you want. But they're just like, it'll be like Sprite, but with pineapple and coconut syrup and like just like all these random combinations of like pop, basically.
Sounds like heartburn waiting to happen.
Yeah, but
No,
that was somewhere Laura really wanted to visit, and I think we did like 2 or 3 visits to Swig, to be fair, whilst we we're in Utah.
that's so funny. Yeah, like you said, everywhere's different. So that's why you need to keep an open mind on where you go, and you'll probably learn so much about America when you're traveling around, doing loads of different things. Like I didn't realize JFK was shot in Dallas, and we stood like there's an X on the floor, and we stood exactly on it, and I was like, wow, this is where JFK was shot, and then walked off. Like I said, I had no idea that that's where it was. So yeah, you learn
Oh,
all sorts of things in history when you're in America.
that's reminded us as well. Cool buildings to visit when you're in different cities. The state capitol buildings. Have you visited any state capitol buildings?
Don't think so, but I am going to DC in a few weeks.
Mm.
So I'll see
Well,
the
I
White
did
House.
go. The White House is very underwhelming, actually, I will say. But you might have a different outlook on that. Just comparing it to Buckingham Palace, it's not as cool.
To be fair, I don't think Buckingham Palace is very cool, so I'm probably going to go and be like, oh wow. The only reason I want to go is because I watched this program called Scandal.
And then you can
So
go and
I'm
be like,
hoping
I've been
that,
there.
yeah. I'm like hoping Olivia Pope's there, but like need to remember it's a TV program.
But there's if you go to like the state capitol buildings, like we went to the one in Austin, and obviously if anybody does like history and that sort of thing, like that's like a rich historical place to go. Like it's like a big building and they had the big gardens around it. And same with, did we go to the one in Boston? I think we went to the one in Boston as well. They're just cool to like walk around and have a little look. Final thing this time. I would always suggest when you are planning your route, trying to visit somewhere that's like got a beach, or like at least like a city and a beach, because like in America there's obviously a lot of coastline. Typical places to go would obviously be like Florida, and like go like Miami or go to Tampa or like Key West and stuff like that where you went. But also even on like the East Coast, you've also got like New Jersey, like there's the Jersey Shore you could go to. Or on the West Coast, you've got like LA or like San Francisco, like that whole like California sort of coastline is beautiful as well. So if you are, like I was saying, if most people go to LA, for example, you need to go to like Santa Monica and Venice Beach and stuff like that as well. Definitely try and visit some beaches, because that's another free thing to do.
Yeah, and it gives you time to just relax, which is a very difficult thing, in my opinion, to do after camp, is to switch your brain off and just chill out. And especially with traveling, you always go, go, go. So I think it's nice in the middle of you traveling to have a stop where you do just chill out. That will probably be my tip for this episode.
I agree. Do your research and make sure that you take some time to chill. Don't be go, go, go the whole time. Unless you're that type of person.
To kind of round off the video, we do have a couple more episodes after this one to come out. Is that right?
I hope so.
And then everyone will probably already be on their way to camp or getting ready to go to camp. Those ones that are going out in June, get excited. It's coming around fast. You're going to have the best summer. And just taking every minute of every day, because before you know it, you're back home and you're wishing you were back away again, traveling around the US. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.